Today we're being joined by Trent Cooper, who is the manager of the Female WA Talent Programs, a coaching specialist and a former coach of the Fremantle AFLW Football Club. Trent, thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Now, tell us a bit about the WA talent role. Trent, obviously you had your time at the Freo Dockers, but how did the Female WA Talent Program opportunity come about?
Yeah, it was just sort of straight after I finished up at Fremantle. The West Australian Footy Commission contacted me to see if I'd be involved in a role in talent. Initially, it was in the male program, the first discussions, but it evolved into working across both programs. So now I'm working closely with the coaching side of the male program, in particular with all the Waffle Colts coaches, spending some time mentoring and help them with their careers and making sure that they're working with the young talent coming through, and then also overseeing the female talent program. So working with the players on that side and making sure the whole program is running smoothly and giving those players the best opportunity to realise their potential.
That's right. And obviously the WA girls in the state championship obviously had 3 games. Obviously they were winless in that game. But what did you overall take out of that? Because I feel like, I felt like the longer it went, the better they were getting. And they were the last time, I believe, to play their first game when some teams had already played multiple.
Yeah, we've reviewed that already. We don't think the way the fixtures were with our Waffle W season was the best way to showcase their talent. We had a lot of players because it was at the end of their Waffle W season. So we had, I think, 10 players unavailable for national champs. And a lot of those were really good players as well. So plus we had a fair bit of or illness or just general sore injuries that weren't major enough to stop them playing, but to not perform at their best. That was definitely the case. Everyone that we played, I think it was their last game of the champs. So they'd already had a chance to work through things. And as you said, our best performance was against South Australia, who I think were probably the strongest team in the champs. We played some really good footy in that last game, and we're just getting our act together, if you like. It was unfortunate we didn't have any more opportunities. So what was pleasing was probably that middle range of players who were sort of borderline to be drafted. I thought they really put their hand up from the carnival. Our better players had some issues. So our 3 National Academy players, Claudia Wright broke her leg in the week leading into the champs, so she was unavailable. Molly O'Hare had a lot of injuries and illnesses through the year, and she was nowhere near her best in the carnival. And Zippy Fish had such a big workload during the year for East Fremantle. With them playing all the way through the finals, didn't perform at her best either in the chance. They still managed to make All-Australian, which showed what a talent she is. What was really pleasing is the ones just below that level. I thought Tash and Twistle had a great carnival. Kate Newsom, the ruck, really come on. Taya Chambers finished well in that last game. Noa McNaughton showed a lot. Sabella playing some really good players and performed well. So, and then like Lily Paterson, who wasn't even in our program early on in the year, she performed really well through the midfield as well. So that was the pleasing part, that middle range of players did come on during the season and perform well in the champs.
That's right. I personally, being from Victoria, I was actually at that game when WA played Vic Country and the Vic Metro played SA, and I've watched all the games. So it's good to see, like the players you mentioned. Obviously, everyone knows about Zippy Fish and Molly O'Hare, but in particular, I thought Lily Paterson and Noa McNaughton were 2 players for me, and Taya Chambers, that really sort of feel where most people would talk about Molly and Zippy, etc. But those players, as you said, below them were really stepped up and had a really good tournament overall. Yeah,
that was actually a really pleasing game because the first half was sort of diabolical, and it's not easy to turn it around. And I think, like on that occasion, Lily and Noah were 2 of our better players in the first half and sort of held us in the game. And we're obviously a long way back. And then I think Zippy had her best quarter for the whole champs in that third quarter when we played some really good footy. And so that was really pleasing. And then the other factor which was pleasing was I think nearly all of our goals across the 3 games were kicked by bottom ages who are all going to be back next year. Wolverines, Blizzard, those types who I think going to be really good players for us next year, and then future AFLW players as well.
That's right. You mentioned some of the bottom ages for the following year. Evie Couch, obviously, one will be up there again in the draft next year. It must be really impressive for how she's gone as a bottom major in this championships as a whole, playing on some good key forwards as well.
Yeah, well, she actually won our MVP this year. She also won it last year as a 16-year-old. So sort of unheard of that, with that. And just such an unflappable character. She almost looks like she's not trying out there. She does it so easily, but works really hard at her craft. She's improved her 2K time out of sight, and is now a really good endurance athlete as well. So she's just so easy to work with, so coachable, and looking forward to seeing what she does in her draft year next year.
So I just wanted to touch on a few other names that were throughout the championship. You mentioned Sabella Banks as well. Obviously, a tough defend. Obviously, with the helmets, is very noticeable. And I thought, as you said before, briefly mentioned about playing on some key players and quelling the influence of a lot of players. A lot of people look at the players that are racking up the disposals or kicking all the goals, but she obviously played a key part in that back half, stopping her opponent kicking goals and doing everything else.
Yeah, I thought the Vic Country was really we knew what a great player Ash Centre is, but we sort of let them work it out as a team who was going to play on her in the first half, and that didn't go so well. So she was given a job by Bo McDonald in the second half, and the backline coach Wade Spilker to play tight on Centra. I think she kept it to 2 or 3 possessions, no score involved, nothing in that. Sabella is an amazingly athletic player, as just got shown in the state combine, where I think she had the second quickest agility of all time. And her sprint was also elite as well. So she's got a lot going for her. She lives 3 hours south of Perth in Busselton, so can't train as often as what a lot of the other players have been able to. So for her to achieve what she's done this year, it's been outstanding. I think she's a player with a really big future because she's got so much upside.
That's right. Obviously, some names that may be familiar to some. Holly Britton, Tiani Teakle, obviously got their sisters in the AFLW at the moment. How did you feel they both performed throughout the championships?
Yeah, I thought Holly had a really good championship. She did well at Peel this year. Peel struggled, and Holly played really good, consistent footy. And I thought she, probably the first 2 games, she was one of our most consistent players across those 2 games, Holly. A completely different player to her sister. Her sister's a highly athletic, really good runner on the outside, and her skills are developing, whereas Holly's got really neat skills, really good decision maker, really clean under pressure. So, completely different players, but Holly had a good chance. And I was also pleased one of her areas to improve was her endurance, and Holly ran a reasonable time in the 2K in the state combine as well. So, pleased to see what she did. Tiani Teakle's another one who I remember watching her sister Julia come through the pathway and at East Fremantle at a similar age, and I wasn't really confident that she'd make it as an AFLW player, and I was completely wrong, obviously, with what Julia's done. And Tiani, last year was, in my mind, a bit similar to what I'd seen in Julia before, but Tiani worked really hard this year and her athletic profile is probably slightly better than where Julia was at the same age, and she had a really good back half of the year. She performed really well down back, some good intercept marks. She can kick it a long way. She's also one of the best handballers I've seen of a player. And the other thing that we didn't show, but East Fremantle had showed before, is that she can definitely play in the front half as well. So, I hope I wouldn't be surprised if Port Adelaide, knowing the character of the Teakle sisters, because they're absolute first-class characters, if Tiani does get an opportunity, and she'll just keep continuing to improve because she's a hard worker and she's got some good attributes, as we know.
So now two others I want to mention that played in the championship, Lily Paterson and Noa McNaughton. Obviously, Lily, as you mentioned, to some, came out of nowhere, dominated for Swan Districts. I think was second in the club beating there, third in the league, best and fairest, which is a huge honour when you got Zippy and Jamie Harkin, who's now been at the Eagles. And having a consistent season, played really well in the championships. I think averaged the most disposals of the team, like 5 clearances and tackles per game. Must be really good to see her rise up, and I'm sure would be in that draft contention now with the big jump that she's had. And Noah having a really consistent championships, kicking some goals and being a key contributor as well.
Yeah, I'll start with Lily. Like Lily, to her credit, like she wasn't in the state program over the summer, and to be honest, she wasn't even close. And then she started getting good numbers in the AFLW. So I looked at her, and I was still not convinced that the way she played would transfer. But we put the GPS on her, and it was actually quite good, her running. Like, she really worked hard in the games. So we got her in our program, and she was just worked so hard, and she's so determined. And like, she knows how to find the ball. She's got really good running patterns already for someone who's got Scottish parents, wasn't raised in a footy environment at all, but just got better and better. And I think the big thing that shows her desire to make it and where she can make it, she was running a 10:32K sort of this time last year, and she ran 8 minutes dead on the at the combine. So to finish top 10, that was where I thought her weakness was, and she's actually turned it into a strength, and she's done that on her own will. I think she's one who's really put her hand up. Noah's a really good player. I think there's definitely a role for her. We see sides struggling to kick goals. She's a player who impacts in that front half. We had to throw her on ball a fair bit because we weren't getting the ball down there, and she showed what she can do around the ball. She's got high footy IQ, really good lateral movement. She's a very good mark for her size, so she's not an easy match. You can't just put a small player on her and think you're safe, because she's good overhead, and she can make things happen. And she's really worked on her forward pressure, which is now one of her strengths as well. So I think there's definitely a role for her on an AFLW list. She had a tough start to the year, but it was good the way that she had an injury during all pre-season, which sort of held her back. But it was really good to see the way that she did finish the year.
Just a few bottom ages that are in the next year's draft. Renee Morgan and Olivia Woolmarans are obviously two players I feel like, as bottom ages, did take their chances, I feel, in the championships this year in the under-18s, and are ones for the future to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, definitely. Renee's just a workhorse. She was another one who had an interrupted year. I think she only played 4 games at South Fremantle, but she come back in and she was underdone for us. But she's a really good player, real workhorse. Can play sort of anywhere on the ground, high footy IQ, clean and tough and good skills, and can kick it both sides of the bodies as well. So, I love working with her. She's just so keen to improve and really good team player. And, Wilmar, she was, she's one of those players who's got unbelievable athletic capabilities. And sometimes you look at her and you think, she's walking and she's sort of not in the game. Next exploding, and you look at her GPS after the game and her high speed running for a tall, I've never seen anything like it. She can consistently get up to 800 or 900 metres of high speed running, and sometimes you see her out on her own and you think, that's poor defending, but it's just the defenders can't go with her because of her work rate. So she had a good carnival, and she had a really good futures game as well. Got high hopes for Liv in the coming season, and expect her to be that player that clubs can pick up as a key forward, second ruck, which is so valuable in the game.
And the two that everyone talks about, Molly O'Hare and Zippy Fish, why do you feel that people talk about them so much? Obviously, they're both very good, but why do you feel that they're always the ones that people go to, because of how impressive they've been throughout, not just this year, but previous years too?
Well, Zippy's done everything so far already. Like, she's one of the best ball users, male or female, that I've ever seen. At that age, she's an amazing ball user, really good balance. She's one of those players who, when she's running, her head is really still, and it means you can make good decisions. And I think that's not everyone's like that. And you think of the best players, both male and female, have that trait. And it's not a trait you can teach. It's something that's a bit more natural. And Zippy's got that. And last year, she probably wasn't working too hard. She was relying on talent. But she took on that feedback, and her pre-season, she worked harder than anybody. And every session that we GPS'd every session, she was consistently in the top 1 or 2 for output. So everything she did with that, was first class. I think, she probably did get a little bit tired towards the end of the year, which isn't surprising. She's going to make a big impression on an AFL list for sure. Molly, well, the upside with her is enormous. 180 centimetres. She finished second in the 2K in the National Combine. I think she did 7:35. That was off a limited build-up as well, because she had been not well, and we had to give her a real good spell after the champs. Her jumps are outstanding, as is her speed. She'll be able to play across every line. One of the most coachable characters I've ever come across. And, she's every team just dying to have people like Molly on their list. So it's going to be interesting where she goes. I know some of the clubs now have got her sort of ranked above Zippy, and a lot, obviously, will have Zippy above her. So it's going to depend on where which clubs need what. Like if you need a small player who can break lines, Zippy's going to be the one. But if you're looking for a taller player with the upside that Molly's got, she could be the one. So, really going to be interesting to see where they go. But, both are obviously going to have a big impact on the AFLW in the next few years.
So for sure, they definitely will. Now, we've been mentioning throughout all this about the draft combine, about some results that impressed you, obviously. Who are some players that you took out of the draft combine that you thought maybe, they've impressed more in some areas that they've maybe shown in the past that they might not be as strong in, but they've been performed pretty well in?
I think Lily Paterson was that big one. To run an 8-minute 2K and finish top 10, that shows that she can play AFLW midfield. She can now run both ways, which probably she didn't have that ability early on because she didn't have the tank, but she's worked hard at that. Yeah, for me, that was the big one. Taya Chambers' speed. We've known internally that she's very quick. And for her, I think she finished third in the 20-metre sprint at the National Combine. So, and she's a reasonably tall player as well. So that gives her an opportunity to match up on different types of players as a defender. And also, we threw on a wing late in the champs as well, and she showed a bit there. So that sort of athletic profile will lift her up. And Sabella Banks, again, we knew how agile she was, but a few clubs probably hadn't taken much notice of Sabella, and then that sort of time they'd have to take notice. And if they go back and watch some of the replays of games of their performances in all 3 games of the work that she did, that could sort of help her up a little bit as well.
Absolutely. In terms of the draft overall, who are some smokies that you feel that have probably more than likely come out of the state championship side that you feel people should keep an eye on for the draft in November or December?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Like one we haven't mentioned is Claudia Wright, who I don't think is a smoky. I think she will get picked up. So she had the broken leg, but had a very good year for Claremont. I expect her to get up. I think we covered the other one who's really come on in the state champs was Kate Newson as a ruck. Really raw, but with massive upside. If the club needs sort of that backup ruck, developing ruck, she's a likely type. It may be that she might, because the list are only 30, I don't think size like carrying that type of player, but she could be one next year who comes onto the list as an injury replacement player when side need rucks. We saw out of WA this year, M. Fiedler and Tessalon's got late call-ups to list. I could see Kate really coming on a lot next year in that thing. The other smoky is Zoe Keeley, who's a real athletic type. Ruck, she's 184 or something as well. She lives in Katanning, and it's a good 6-hour trip to get to training and things like that. So I see what we'd love to get her back involved in the 18s next year as an overager if she doesn't get picked up, because I think she's got huge upside and just hasn't had the opportunities that other players have had. But you never know. One club might see that potential and now, but it's just, I do think it's at the moment with list sizes only being 30. If it was boys' list of 42, I think someone would be taking a chance and developing a player like that. But with it just being 30, she may have to wait another year to be a realistic chance.
You're talking about the dedication with some players, 6-hour trips, 3-hour trips, over-hour trips. It just shows a great dedication and what they really want to strive to get to, because some people will be scared off by that. Sometimes like, it's too long, I can't be bothered. But it shows the dedication of every player that's in that position to do that travelling. And
the parents as well. They quite often are doing that. Yeah, WA is obviously a big state. So it's... we've got those like Evie Coucher, who's Bandra, an hour away. We've got quite a few. Holly Britton was there. We've got quite a few from there. But and they do make it every session. But but when you're talking 6 hours away, it is pretty tough. And those girls have done really well to perform as well as what they've done. And I think clubs take that into consideration. That resilience they've got to do that. It also means there's a lot of upside as well, because they haven't had the level of training that the local girls have.
Yeah, in terms of the AFLW contest as a whole, obviously being the former Fremantle coach, obviously the time for yourself ended differently to how you would have loved it, is clearly. Do you reflect back on that, and do you want to ever try and get back into the AFLW landscape again in some role?
Yeah, definitely. Not ruling anything out like that. I still very passionate about the competition, and I'm enjoying actually managing a program at the moment rather than just coaching. So if I did come back in, it might be more along those lines rather than coaching. I'm not sure, but I'm still very passionate about it, and hopefully it's a competition. I'm sure it is a competition that will thrive and continue to prosper in the future. It's probably going through a bit of a rough patch at the moment with some growing pains. But it's something that I am passionate about, and someday I could possibly end up back at a club if that's the way things turned out.
That's good. Obviously the Eagles, and the Doggers are both having pretty decent seasons. For some, where the Eagles may have thought we'd be towards the bottom, and obviously right now 3 rounds to go, they're just outside the 8 percentage. How have you assessed both teams' seasons so far?
Yeah, so I really like West Coast list. They've got a lot of young players with a lot of talent. So it's a list that's going to continue to improve. And I think the game against Richmond was the one that probably they weren't expected to win. Everything they've sort of, I think they've done what I thought they could do. Daisy's a great coach. She's been a great addition for female footy in WA in general. They've still got quite a few players on their list who sort of aren't at the level to challenge the top 3 side, some of those older ones. So it's going to take a little while for them to keep recruiting sort of underneath and get that talent in. But they're definitely on the right path, and I'm sure that they'd love to play finals, but I also don't think it's the be-all and end all this year. I think it's just we've seen quite a bit. You do hope they finish the season strong and they don't sort of peter out, but they should finish with 1 or 2 more wins and then launch into next year. Freo went really hard with their recruiting this year, and their recruits have been fantastic. Ash McCarthy, Brazel, Gabby Newton. I think it was a bit slow to start the season, probably because of injury, but she's finished the season really strong. And it was really unfortunate that they've had the injuries and things not go their way. Well, obviously, Kiara Bowers out as well, but the injuries to Aine Tighe and Ange Stannett, because with those players and the recruits in, they would have been, I think, capable of challenging those top sides. It just hasn't worked out that way. So hopefully they can. Those players can come back next year, and those mature age ones that the recruits I've got can hang on. They have got a very old list now. I think they've got the oldest list on. So their window maybe fairly short, but hopefully they get that run where they get everyone together next year to have a crack at it, because I think they can be thereabouts if they do get that opportunity.
What are your thoughts on players like Ella Roberts and Charlie Thomas, Emma O'Driscoll, obviously players that you've coached or coached against? And must be the future of WA is pretty good overall. We talk about the draft coming up, but then also the current players that are at both those clubs. I just feel like Ella probably could be is the best young player in the competition, and she's only 19 and winning all these awards and going to be a star for the future. Yeah,
well, Ella was absolute natural. I remember the first time one of our recruiters saw I got a text straight away. He wanted to, before anyone else did, as all recruiters do. And then, for the moment, we were in best on ground in a WAFLW grand final at 15. She's always going to be a star. And I think she's really coming along well. But one of the things that she did struggle with a bit was ability to play structure, and that she tend to get lost a bit in games and go in and out of games because of that. But she seems to get her running patterns right. I think Daisy's got a really good role for her now, where she goes midfield and forward, and she seems to playing well in both. So she's a star, and she's just going to continue to get better. And the other thing that I've really noticed this year with her has been her composure with the ball in hand. That's really come on this year. It used to be manic and then just getting the ball forward, but now there seems to be some real composure. So, like I said, she's already one of the stars of the game. I love watching her play. And I know a lot of people who necessarily aren't fans, maybe diehard AFLW fans, do like watching her play. So she's the top player that gets the eyes on the TV and people to the game. Emma O'Driscoll, I love her story. She was a netballer. She was overlooked in the draft as an 18-year-old. West Coast actually had a chance to pre-sign her, but she did have some limitations at that stage. And she was really not just an average kick, she was a really poor kick, but she really wanted to improve. She just worked so hard, but she always had that athleticism and competitiveness. And they're things that you can't really teach or improve too much. And Emma's had that in spades, and she's got that personality that just makes every change room better. So I remember when we got her at Freo, I was really excited that she had been overlooked by West Coast, and we got that opportunity. And she just continues to get better and better. And she had the last 3 seasons. She's been really, really good. And who was the other one you mentioned?
Charlie Thomas.
Yeah. So she's one who, coming through, was one of the more natural kicks I've ever seen. I remember I was coaching I was back before I started at Freo with the Footy Commission, coaching the state 18s, but we're coaching all the way down. And Charlie was 14 or 15, and she was in a group. We had 300 players to sort of sift through, and she was put in. There was a group of, let's look at those. We think they're all going to be cut. Because she hadn't come from actually one of the WAFLW clubs. And the moment you saw her kick a footy, you thought, no, you get back over that side, you're definitely going to be all right. And she's a really good player. So, like I said, that type of player coming through is going to be really good for West Coast. And Mim Strom's the other one over here who, she was, I remember on draft night, we didn't think we could get her and Roxy Rue. And West Coast went a different way with pick 2 in the WA draft, and we ended up with Mim. And what she's done, she got thrown in the deep end in her first season when Aine Tighe went down with, unfortunately, the knee injury, and Mim's just got better and better. And this year's been clearly her best year, where she's been a good around the ground player, but now she's sort of dominating hit-outs as well, so giving first year. So I think she's been a big part of Freo sort of pushing to make finals this year, and she's still very young. What is she now, 22 or 23? So she's got a lot of years in front of her still, servicing that Freo midfield.
That's right, and she'd probably be clearly is a genuine contender for the All-Australian ruck spot this year. At your time at Freo, Trent, who would you say was one of your biggest draft success stories, or someone that you picked up through another avenue throughout your time at Freo?
Aine Tighe was, I was pretty confident that she was going to be the best player the AFLW had seen. I was so excited with her. We went to Ireland, picked her up there. Watched her play over there, and then what she was doing in her first pre-season was it was frightening. And then she did her ACL in that first scratch match against Adelaide down in Mandurah, and then knee injury again. So, like, everyone can see what a great player she is now, but that's with the limitations. If she had had a clear run at it, I think she clearly would have been, the best. Well, not clearly, that's a big statement, but one of the best players in the competition. The other one was Janelle Cuthbertson. So she was a tennis player, hadn't played footy, and then come down for a rookie sort of tryout, and was really raw, and she had a broken foot as well. But we sort of liked something about her. And then when she sort of started to get going, we liked her more and more, and sort of half hit her, if you like, put her in the she was playing for the Perth Angels in their reserve side. We picked her up, very, very late draft pick, and she's made All-Australian, and now she's captain of an AFLW club. So she's been a great story. Another one, unfortunately, at least she got to the point where she made All-Australian, but then the injuries have been a big part of her career since that, unfortunately. But yeah, she's one, and I suppose the other one's Ange Stannett, who's another rookie tryout, come down from soccer. She was actually our second choice as a rookie that year. Brown and Moyes was a really good basketballer who, unfortunately, had a knee early on in her AFLW career. But Ange, you could just tell she had a great character about her, and the work that's done to elevate herself to be a really consistent top end performer for Freo now as a captain. She's another one who's done exceptionally well.
I would like to know your thoughts, Don. Who do you feel is the best player in the AFLW competition, Trent? Because I keep chopping and changing my answers. 1 minute it's Mon Conti, then it's Jez Garner. Then you think of the future, like I mentioned, Ella Roberts, Zali Goldsworthy. There's so many names you can put in this position, which I think is a really good thing too. But who do you have in that spot? Yeah,
it's a really good question. Like you said, it does change. I think Garner, across her, just for the difficulty of matchup that she is, we were lucky at Freo, Kiara Bowers, and we could always put Kiara on the opposition's best player, whether it was Prasparkas or Marinol, and Bowers always do an exceptional job and get the ball the other way. But Garner had that ability to push forward and take that height advantage over different players. So just such a hard player to match up on. I'd probably go that way. But like you said, it's been, at one stage it was probably Bree Davey. It's sort of been, Bakes has been amazing. But I think, Riddell's another one who's really had a good batch last 2 or 3 years. But I think Garner's the one that would cause coaches the most headaches, opposition coaches.
So I'm sure, and she would have done on the week when she kicked 3 and had 26, which just shows, it's Lena. There's one name I can't forget. I seem to forget every time I mention, but Ebony Marinoff, another one that just racks it up, tackling machine, clearances, everything every week. It's just great to see someone like her performing really well consistently too, and the most games ever played so far too, I think.
Yeah, she's one that's almost like we can't stop her. Marinoff, when you're coaching, it's like, doesn't matter what you do. There's no point wasting a player on her because she's just going to keep doing it. She's going to tackle. She's going to win possession. So, she's that super competitive player. And she's also improved her ball use. Early on, you could sort of let her get 30 because she didn't hurt you that much. But now she actually really uses the ball well. And, she's going to end up with some really big numbers at the end of her career because she's so durable as well.
For sure. Now, in terms of the setup of the AFLW competition, Trent, in terms of the fixturing, the condensed fixture, the amount of games in weeks, how do you assess that? And overall, in terms of extending the season, how would you go about it? And should that happen?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, and there's a lot of different opinions. And I know a lot of people that I really respect have got different opinions to me as well. I don't mind the condensed fixture, and I like the midweek fixtures. To be able to come home on a Wednesday night or a Monday night and watch a game, I think is a good thing. I'm a bit concerned if the competitions are running at the same time and we're only playing on weekend and there's 18 games of footy on, how AFLW will fare. I think you'll still get the diehard fans, but to improve the overall product, we need to be dragging people across from the men's game. And I thought we were doing that quite well around that 2019, 2020 time when the season was on, sort of 8 weeks after the, or longer after the men's season finished, and people are ready for some more footy and there's nothing on.
Yeah.
And tuning in there, we're consistently getting the 6,000 to games, the TV numbers were good. I think what happened then is we've gone back. COVID probably meant it. People were very tired and they wanted breaks, both AFL and staff. So they got rid of that timing and brought it all in so that people could have that break over Christmas. But I'm not convinced it's working at the moment with those numbers. And I'm worried that the more we get in competing with the men's game, the more trouble we can get. We could get ourselves into. I think you see women's sport at the moment is really flourishing around the world, but they managed to do it by not going head to head. And we saw like the World Cup with the women when it was the only sort of football on, how great that was, and everyone was tuning in. You got the cricket as well. It's really important. I would say female sports like a vineyard. If you put grapes and water it and look after it, the investment doesn't come straight away, but it will come down the track. And I'm just worried where we're sitting at the moment in the AFLW landscape, because if we're going to take on the men's game, I don't know that it's going to be great for us.
In terms of the AFLW draft going national now this year, but prior to this year, Trent, would you recommend to some of the WA girls to like kind of nominate national at that point to try and give their chances a better chance of getting picked up, or you just let them do what they do?
It was definitely a case-by-case scenario of what they wanted and what they needed and what was best for them. So for Georgie Cleaver, for instance, who's a dual sport athlete, or had a good relationship with the West Coast Fever, really good support system at home, which she probably needs to help with that balance. She felt it was important to stay locally, so they supported that decision. Caitlin Surhoy was really keen to test herself, and so was Ella Slocum. It was a bit like that. And then a few others who, were they going to get picked up, give yourself your best chance by going nationally. Yeah, that was definitely the case going forward. Now it's a full national draft. I think they'll take the top talent wherever it is. I can still see late in the draft clubs just staying local, and which is going to advantage Victorian girls because there's 10 teams over there. The number of draft picks could be dependent on how many picks West Coast and Freo go into the draft with. So it's exciting now that they're now getting paid enough to survive by moving east. They're not actually going to be making a heap of money, but there's enough money for them to survive doing that. And I do enjoy now watching games and seeing Caitlin Surhoy sort of she plays for GWS. And I do enjoy watching all the teams rather than just the Freo and West Coast. So I do enjoy that element of it.
That's right. I've had a chance to meet Caitlin, had her on my channel as well. She's a ripper person. It's just great to see, unfortunately, what happened on the weekend. Hopefully we'll be back start of next season. But the rise of her in their first year, plus obviously you've been involved with her, been in WA, it's great to see how she's gone and could be a genuine contender for the Rising Star this year too. Yeah,
probably the injury could hurt now. But, I think the Rising Star, there might be a couple of second and third year players who might have pipped her, but I think she's been the best performing first year player out of last year's draft crop. I think that would be safe to say. And she's had a really good year, really good person, like super switched on. She was thinking about doing medicine. I think she's just doing to start with, then may move into that later. But and taking all that challenge, she was happy to go anywhere. And some people thought it was a bit high for her to be taken at pick 3, but it's been proven to be an astute pick by GWS. And I think she's in for a really good career.
And so you mentioned the indicator there about second and third year plays of the Rising Star. Now, who do you have in that position? Obviously, on top of Caitlin, I would feel like Sinead Goody, obviously been probably one of the most consistent midfielders in the draft got from last year. Lucy Corona, I think, has done some really good jobs on some key forwards. Gemma Howland's a big name for Port Adelaide. I feel like she's done a great job on it throughout the year. Played some roles. There's some names I have. Who else do you have or added on to that?
I haven't followed the games, but just the eligibility of it. So, because Goody didn't play last year, did she? So she'd be eligible. First year, so she's definitely. So she come in. Yeah, so she's another first year one. Yeah, I wasn't thinking of her because she wasn't in the draft, was she? She was a pre-signing.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, but she'll be up there. There's probably a second or third year player who. So Schultz, she got nominated last year, didn't she? So she's ineligible.
Yeah. Well, she got nominated this week. I didn't know they could do that. She was under the 10-game limit or something like that. So she was able to get a nomination twice, so she's technically eligible now.
Okay, yeah, well, there you go. So she's one who probably was a bit disappointing in the front half of the year from what she did last year, but she's really finished the season strongly. So, she could be a chance as well. So, I really haven't had a close enough look at who's eligible to put my neck out, but I think best first-year player, Caitlin Silver would be right up there.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of this year, I'll just wrap up with this year's draft, Trent. So I really do appreciate coming on. Who would you have in this conversation for pick one? And again, I feel like you mentioned earlier, it depends on which club has pick one. Obviously, we've got a trade period to go through, so it could change dramatically. But at this stage, Collingwood and Gold Coast are two sides that seem to be around the mark for the first few picks. Who do you have in your top three, even if it's just a draft ranking purely?
Yeah, it's just going to depend on who wants what. So you've got the three that people have been talking about all the way through. Havana Harris, Ash Centra, and Zippy Fish. I think they're the three that have been most talked about, and they're all very different. So then there's some other good players as well that could fit in that. Howley, is it from
Sarah Howley? Yep.
I really rate her as a player, and she's going to be a good long-term prospect. Just the way that she runs, and like I said, Molly will be in the mix as well. I'm not sure if she'll go pick one. So Centra is just such a smooth mover, capable of hitting the scoreboard. We've seen how important that is in AFLW. So I tend to think that she could be pick one. Gold Coast, of course, well, we're presuming they're going to get access to Harris. So how it works, if someone bids on her and then they get her, if they happen to finish second, or bottom, can they get Centra and then get Harris as well, which would be amazing for them to turn around their fortune this season. So I tend to think it'll be one of those three. But it's going to be a really interesting draft night, and it's really hard to work out who's going to finish where as well. Like, I know I do my ladder predictor, and I find the top half pretty easy, but the bottom half is very different. West Coast and Freo might just finish too high to get the either of the two WA girls, I think.
That's right. I'm a bit surprised, to be honest, with how Gold Coast's season's eventuated. Obviously, the side that made their first finals appearance last year, and the Swans to a degree as well. And they've both. Well, Swans have been a bit more unlucky with some games, but in terms of the Suns, they've dropped up dramatically. But in the end, it could potentially help them to a degree, at least for this year's draft. If you mentioned Afana Harris, if they have pick one, they could. I assume they can just snap her up and then get someone else. Well, pick someone else, and then the bid will come for Harris after and get her then.
After that, we've also got Fleur Davies coming through next year, who looks...
Georgia Davies,
Georgia Davies, who looks an absolute gun as well. So they've got a few coming through. I think they just had I think probably their experienced players played out of their skin last year. Maybe they did overachieve Gold Coast a bit. Then a couple of injuries this year to Whitford and the like have hurt them. And Sydney, I think, they played super last year, but they've just had some injuries as well. And when the depth of other clubs, that's hurt them. So I still think both clubs are on the right path with their younger lists to challenge. Might not be next year, but the next 3 or 4 years.
Just one last one to wrap it up, Trent. Pressure coming on. If you were to name your AFLW Premier for this year, who do you feel that would be? And what is your bold call for the entire draft period?
Okay. I've been on North Melbourne since they lost the grand final last year, so I've got no reason to change that now. Bold draft call. Is there anyone who's going to be trading out a really good player to get one or two in this year's draft? I could see, I'm going to say that one of the clubs will trade out a genuine star to get one of those top two picks. So that's my bold call for the trade and draft period.
That's good. I love that, Trent. Hopefully something like that happens, because myself, someone that loves the trade period and the draft period, hopefully you would love something like that, especially if your own club's not involved in terms of the big name going out. It'd be great to see. Trent, I really appreciate you coming on, and all the best for everything that you're doing, and appreciate you coming on.
No worries at all. Thanks a lot.
No, thank you.